Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today, as you already know me, is the Surah Shah, and today I've got a very special guest with me, my sister, Mrs. Amjad Anwar.
Anjuman Anwar.
Yes, sorry about that.
Not at all.
And I'm really excited about today because obviously I've worked with you before, I've seen what you do, and especially the topic today because it's on radicalisation. You've done so much work with this, and I think it's very important
that I've become a radical.
Yes. And I think I'm going that way as well. So I think, you know, we need to talk about it, definitely. And I think there's a lot of people out there that don't understand what radicalisation means, and it affects many people. And I want to start with the first question is, what would you say is being a radical or being radicalised?
Well, you know, there are different levels of what radicalisation means, especially to me. There's negatives and there are positives. I mean, the government doesn't know what extremism means or radicalisation actually means, so you're asking me a $6 million question here. But you know, semantics have caused a lot of problems, words have caused a lot of problems. If we look at the life of my Prophet ﷺ, I don't think there was anybody more radical than the Prophet was, because he stood for justice for all. He didn't believe in, you know, that you're X, Y, and Z. He believed in justice.
Yes.
Right? And if that's what radicalisation means, subhanallah, I'm proud to be a Muslim.
Yes.
And a follower of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. You know, he was my role model. He is my role model. So I understand that to be radical, it can be good, but it can also be bad. So when you look at all the stuff that's going on in the world, where people are killing innocent people, these are the people who have religious illiteracy.
Yes,
okay.
Uneducated, yes.
Well, but then it depends what you mean by education. You can have a PhD, but you can still be, you know,
educating within life and social circles, because I think, you know, as Muslims, we're living in a country that is non-Muslim, as we've been talking about, and we're here trying to adapt to being Muslim, but living with non-Muslims, and it is their country, it's their rules, and we have to abide by those rules.
As long as they don't, you know, if you look, I always say to people, go back to your scriptures, look at our own history and the life of the prophets in the first 13 years in Mecca.
Yes.
Okay? Mecca was not an Islamic state as such. How did he live? And we have to adopt those ways.
Definitely, and it's same for us now, because obviously we need to adapt our faith and show it in the best light, because we're advocates for our faith.
Of course. And you know, I've had a very good fortune of traveling in Europe, and I often come back and say, you know, we do religion rather well in the United Kingdom. Nobody's stopping you to build your mosques. Nobody's telling you can't pray. Nobody's saying you can't give zakat. Nobody's saying you can't be a Muslim. Nobody's saying that you cannot fast. The basic principles to be a Muslim.
Yes.
And now we have to live those. I think the problem arises when we don't live that faith.
Yes, and yes, it's the way that we behave, and then some people see that they don't accept the way we behave. Now I was talking to my daughter, and she's going to university, and she says that there's lots of rooms in the university where you can go and do salah.
Oh yes.
She's in Manchester University, so it's the big one. And she said, I'm sat there, I'm looking through my homework on a tablet, and she says, a sister was stood next to me, and I'm just carrying away. Next to me I look, and she's doing salah on the floor in the corridor on a coat. And she was like, but there's a room right next to her that she could have gone in and prayed. And she was quite confused at well, I'm a Muslim, she's a Muslim, but why is she doing that in the middle of, you know, what's that saying about us, that we want to try and stop everyone to come stop and look at us, or you know, what's she going to gain from it?
Maybe she didn't know that the room was available. That could be an issue.
Maybe, but you know, I think that you know, you see on YouTube there's many different places where people are praying outside. It's not an issue, whatever. But if there's a room there to pray and you're not doing it, some people might ask the question that why.
It's to be, you know, there's an Urdu word, well, there's an Arabic word, hikmah. You know, I think we need to understand wisdom behind everything.
Yes.
I always give opportunities to people that maybe they didn't understand or they didn't know. And it's give and take. It has to be give and take.
Definitely.
It has to be.
Definitely. And do you think, obviously living in the UK, and you just said it, you know, within all the European countries, that we're lucky you know, here in the UK, because the UK lets us do all our fuzz within our religion. But what do you feel? Do you think the government are doing enough about radicalisation? Because you hear it all the time on the TV, is it actually explaining what radicalisation is, or is it just there to scare us, or what?
No, I think you've asked a very important point, very important question. As I said, radicalization can mean many things to many people. I think what has happened is that governments, not only our government, but if you look at what happened across Atlantic with Donald Trump,
yes,
what the governments and what the parties are doing is scaremongering. So when you look at Brexit,
yes,
what happened with that? It's creating fear. So our political parties, our media, have created a certain kind of fear, and it's actually given legitimacy to those people who have been sitting on a bench or sitting on a wall, keeping quiet, maybe not being vocal or racist or Islamophobic. That is giving them legitimacy to say, well, you know what, my leader is saying, in America, Donald Trump is saying we're going to throw out all the Muslims and we're going to build a mall. Well, if he can do it, so can I. Why can't I?
Well, would you say that how Donald Trump was behaving during his elections, that's quite radical as well, isn't it?
Well, of course it is.
But when you hear the word radicalisation,
you think about Muslims.
Yes. But then if you look at it, he's not Muslim, you know. And
I'm not too sure what he is, but God help him.
Yes, you know. And I think that, you know, we should get, you know, the word radicalisation wasn't made for Muslims, but at the moment you hear it and it's like, you know, picturised towards a Muslim. But what happened in America proves that there's non-Muslims that are radical.
Well, I'm sorry, but what about your Ku Klux Klan? Are they not radical?
Definitely.
The Crusaders, were they not radical? You know, so
like you said, there's good and bad radicalisation.
Absolutely, and I keep saying, you know, I read somewhere, and I don't know who said it, that yes, I am an extremist, and I am a radical because I'm extremely kind. So I'm not sure. So words can have different meaning for different people, different understanding for different people, and they can be manipulated.
But I think, you know, I don't know if you've met anyone, but, you know, being a Muslim and then somebody coming up to you and saying, well, I think you're radicalised or you're behaving in a radical way, it would be quite scary for that Muslim when somebody was actually pointing a finger, and you wouldn't necessarily think they're saying it because of a good reason. They'd be saying it for the negative.
Well, we've seen what's been happening in our country, where children as young as 4 have been questioned by the Prevent people because you have a child who's drawn a cucumber, or has written a terrorist house instead of a terrorist house.
Yes.
And they've been questioned. These are very young children. Again, through government policies, we are creating fear, and people feel fearful, so they don't have conversations. You know, I'm a teacher by profession.
Yes.
I walked into a classroom a few months ago at a very good grammar school, and this young Muslim boy was not able to say the word God.
Why?
Because he didn't want to offend those people in the room who didn't have a religion.
Okay, so is that not radical? That's not radicalism.
No, but that is but
you know,
what we're doing is creating political correctness
and friction. Because obviously, if you're scared of talking, and that's dialogue. So if you're scared of talking and you've got to watch everything that you say, then how can you show your true feelings and your emotions?
Well, you're not supposed to. That's the whole point.
But then if you can't do that, then how can you engage?
Who said you should engage? Engagement is not good.
We're saying
people can't look. The divide and rule philosophy has always been where you don't allow people to talk to each other. You allow people to live in segregated communities. You know, that it's okay to do that. And when people don't talk to each other, look, I'll give you an example. If a husband and wife have an issue and they don't talk to each other, what do we say? Bring somebody in, bring a member of the family, for goodness sake, bring the Imam Sahib in, or bring somebody to have that conversation.
Definitely, because you need that dialogue.
And you just look at it.
It could be the smallest little thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's the same, you know, even running a country, I'm sure that, you know, if a lot of the times if they actually sat in with a third person,
oh, good God, now you're asking them to do something sensible.
You know, I think
governments do not do things sensibly.
Well, we know that now, not really. But, you know, what do you think that, you know, what could we all do to help the situation with radicalisation? What do you think as normal, like our viewers out there now watching this, and they'll be thinking, yeah, you know, we want to be proud of being radical in a good way. And if somebody asks us, that, you know, are you radical? Not to be scared about it. What would we say? What would you say to them?
I think first we need to be very sure who we are ourselves.
Yes.
We need to be very sure of our own values. We need to be sure, absolutely sure, that we're so convinced about our own values that we can venture into somebody else's sacred space.
Yes.
When you're sure of that, you can have that difficult conversation.
Yes.
You can explain, you can talk. So for me, know who you are, know your scriptures.
What's coming from that is, though, we need to know our scriptures and our faith, which is exactly, I believe in exactly what you're saying. We're Muslims, yeah, and we've got this issue where we've got Muslims within Muslims,
the intra-dialogue,
yes,
yeah,
that are saying, well, you can't sit with this Muslim because he's not a proper Muslim, or his faith is different from our faith as Muslims, so we can't pray together, we can't have friendships. That's a very big radicalisation. I feel like, you know, I mean, I've got friends from all different faiths, and when I speak to a non-Muslim, nobody rises a finger up. And now, as a Sunni, sat on a Shia TV station, I'm very proud of doing it, and I know you're feeling quite proud as well, because we're Sunnis, and we're not scared of sitting with Shias. We're all Muslims. We should all love each other. You know, it's one ummah. But I feel that, you know, if you engage with a different kind of a Muslim, then it's like all hell loose.
I think you know, as you quite rightly said, I have friends who have come from different spectrums of within the Muslim community. The issue is that you have to build relationships. Then we have the difficult conversation.
Yes.
And there are difficult conversations to be had between the Sunni Muslims and the Shia Muslim. And I think our leadership,
relationship.
But you can't have that conversation if you don't have a relationship.
Exactly.
Okay. I feel comfortable to be able to walk into a TV station which is representative of a different background than my own.
Because
but I'm comfortable with
yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But when I have built relationships, I can have those difficult conversations. You see, you can't zap people from outer space to have a difficult conversation. You need to build that relationship. So the scholars will have to have the conversation together. The people at the grassroots will need to understand who they are. And we have to stop pointing fingers at each other. We need to look at ourselves. We need to respect the differences. You know, when you look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Yes.
Okay. Look at the life of my own the Sahabas, and I learned from that.
You know,
exactly.
You know, when I'm out, and it's probably happened to you as well. When you're out, maybe in a primarily English setting, at an event or anything, and you're there and you see another woman with a scarf on, and you Alhamdulillah, and you say
Salam
alaikum, and then you say, oh, Alhamdulillah, you know, and you start conversation, dialogue starts straight away because you're wearing a scarf, and she knows you're a Muslim, you know she's a Muslim, but the first thing you don't say is, are you Shia or Sunni?
Why would you?
You see the scarf,
exactly.
But then after you sit and say, oh well, I met a nice woman today and she was Shia and I was Sunni, then it's like, but why? What did you talk about? Did you talk about the different, you know? And it's like, well, no, we talked about being Muslim.
Or we talked about being good.
Yeah, or we talked about being women.
Exactly.
And that's what we talked about. And we're now starting a relationship. We respect each other. And once you have that respect,
then you can't hurt you
can't hurt each other because you respect each other.
No, and you don't hurt friends.
No.
When you've developed a relationship, you become a friend. And you know, it takes time to become friends, and you don't hurt friends in difficult times. Friendship is important. If you look at what happened in Berlin, for instance, we had riots, if you remember. We've never had riots in Blackburn, although I have to say, you know, anything can be reached very quickly. But we have differences on the cross.
Yes.
And we all believe that one day he will return.
Yes.
Okay. So why are you concentrating on 1 quarter and 3 quarters we agree?
Exactly.
And I think that also goes with whether Shia or Sunni relationship.
Yes.
Also with a different political debate. We need to find a framework. And I think our leadership has failed to to find that framework.
Yes,
I'm sorry
definitely.
to say this, but I think we have a very weak religious and political leadership.
We have, yes,
Right.
definitely.
And if your guide is weak, the chances are that your flock will not succeed.
No, because
And that's where the issues are.
you follow your leader and you follow how they behave, and because you believe in how they behave, because you're following them.
Absolutely.
Like our role model is our Prophet ﷺ. And so we read and we learn and we read and we learn, and when we have an issue we go back and we read again. And I was having a discussion with a non-Muslim that helps Muslims over in Africa, and he said that, you know, I'm English and I haven't got a faith. He says, so when something happens, like a baby dies or something really bad happens, we're just in tears, we're broken. But he says, when I see a Muslim that has such a big impact in their life, they say it's from Allah.
SubhanAllah.
And they sit and they pray, and they've got that inside them to just have sabr, you know, and that know that Allah knows best, and this is for a reason, you know, and because we've got that faith. But then the sad thing then after that is that, yeah, we've got our faith, then why are we so negative towards our sisters and brothers when they've got the same faith with some similarities and some differences? Why don't we just talk amicably and discuss it, and not say you're not a proper Muslim or you're not
And who gives you the right to do that anyway?
no one. Who knows? Who knows which is the final, you know?
You will
who
not
knows?
know. And look, somebody a few days ago was discussing about exactly the same subject. The deathbed, our deathbed will decide who we are.
Yes.
It's that second when your life is taken from you,
yes.
that's the deciding who you are.
Yes.
So who am I to point fingers at someone?
And we're all going in the same grave.
Well,
And
yes.
we're all gonna, you know, be gone, and we'll be there waiting to do Ziyarah of our Prophet
It's a frightening
ﷺ.
thought, isn't it?
Yes.
No, not the Ziyarah to talking about. I'm just talking about, you know, that because I've just recently come from somebody, you know, who has passed away, and you know, it was very sad. But we're sad for the people who are
Left behind.
They're in a
Because
better
they've started
place.
their journey now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a temporary life, for goodness sake. We have to understand that. And I think that's
We
something
forget
else.
that, though.
No, of course we do. Of course we do.
We just think
Absolutely.
it's, you know, we need the big house, and we need the car, and we need the mobile phone, and we're very into our children, our family life, and you forget about what's our deen actually teaching us, and that, you know, when we go, they're still going to carry on,
They have no choice.
you know, but we won't be there, and it's not like everything's going to stop because we've gone.
No, of course
We're
not.
we're nothing, you know. We're just another little
Absolutely.
cog, and it'll be replaced when we've gone. But are we caring about what's going to happen to us when we've gone? You know?
And I think this is where sometimes our religious leaderships forget. They are banking information into our children, constantly banking without contextualizing that information. What does it mean? What does Surah X, Y, Z mean today? What does
Yes.
it mean? And that contextualization has gone amiss. So you have children who become bored. You have children who don't understand, who think, well, I'll go to the mosque, I'll do my 2 hours, I will do that. That's okay. You know, but what does it mean to us, you know, in the 21st century, you know, year 2016,
Yes.
what does it mean? We're not saying that Islam needs reformation. What we're saying is that what was happening 1438 years ago, what is happening in 2016, we need to understand that.
And bring it-
that,
yes.
I think, our leadership has failed to get that information to the masses. And I think that's where our problem
And
is.
it's not just the children as well.
of course
it's
not.
it's the women as well. I think they get left out quite a lot. With
Oh,
our
tell me
faith.
about it.
And I was talking to an imam, and he does a lot of speeches on women and empowerment for women, which is very rare to find such an imam. And I said, you know, mashallah, you know, I love just to listen to your speeches because you're talking about us. And he says, you know, the woman's hand is the one that rocks the cradle, and if we don't take care of the women, what are our children going to be?
Absolutely. The first university
Is your mum.
is your mum.
And women are so important in Islam, and Islam's the only religion that gives so much dignity, so much pride to a woman, so much respect, and brought everything to us. But nowadays, 2016, yeah, you'll go to sit to Baji's house or whoever's house. And when you talk about religion, it's like, I don't know, I just cook and I take care of the kids. He deals with all that. But why are you not sitting with your children and talking about what did you learn today? How does that impact on your life today? You know, it's all right buying them a games console and letting them play, but
this is what mosques are doing these days, sadly. They've become babysitters.
Yes, and women don't have that engagement to go and to also find out what the children are being taught, and to carry that on at home as well, because it shouldn't just stop after 2 hours. It's our life.
It's not lived though, sister. This is the point.
Yeah.
We're not living the faith.
No,
we talk about it. We don't live it.
No.
You know, you put the Quran, the most important book for a Muslim and for others too, I think, you put it on the high shelf and after wonder, well, why is it there?
And you just go, well, I've respected it.
I put it there because, no, it's got to be lived. You've got to live it every day. Every moment has to be lived. And if you're not living it,
it's an encyclopedia for life.
Absolutely. And I think the fault, this is what I meant when I said, I don't like pointing fingers. I like to point fingers myself. Well, what did I do? What have I done for my faith? What have I done for my community? What have I done for my family? What have I done as a mother? Have I lived? Have I transmitted that knowledge to my child? No, I'm afraid not. We failed. Well, you know, one has to be honest, and I'm being very publicly saying that I think most of us have failed.
Yes, we have, and I think, you know, we need to bring back that, you know, women in Islam should be doing more in Islam so that they can pass that on to the children, especially if they've got daughters as well, that it's okay to be advocates for Islam. It shouldn't just be left for your sons to do. We're advocates also, and we should show that, you know, and I think, we are scared and we are put to one side, and I think, you know, we need to stand out more. Well,
you're standing up, sir.
We do, but you know, because I'm hopeful now that my daughter will see what we're doing, and for her to then stand up for the masjid or for any Islamic thing and say, well, look, I'm a Muslim, you know, I can't do this.
I mean, there's so many mosques, sister, that don't even allow women to go, for goodness sake. I mean, and you know, that you find that I find it quite amusing, actually, to think, you know, I've also travelled in some of the Middle Eastern countries, never seen that problem.
No,
I've never seen. I've always seen, and I think it's very much a cultural issue from Pakistan and India. I think, or Bangladesh. It's very much a subcontinent issue. Where how can you bar women, for goodness sake, entering a mosque, a place of worship? Would you rather have them somewhere else? Because
you've been in Syria, haven't you?
I was in Alhamdulillah. I was in Syria very sadly 6 months before the war broke out in 2011, and I was able to go to some of the places. The wonderful places, which have now no doubt have been damaged and destroyed.
It's very sad.
Which is very sad. And you know, we have to remember, in an individual level, dua, we have to do dua.
Yes.
But collective level, we have to come and think, what do we do? How do we stop the suffering?
While you was in Syria, you must have seen going to these holy shrines and places.
Yes.
And you went in, was there women there as well?
Of course.
Like I went to Iraq in 2014, 2015, and in every masjid, there's, you know, segregation for women, but it's not like segregation in the UK.
No.
It might be just a little blind. It's not.
Absolutely.
You've gone to a holy place, you're going and respecting it. It's not a big deal.
I'll give you another example. I was in Jerusalem recently.
MashaAllah.
And I love going to Al-Aqsa, and I've been very fortunate to have gone there 3-4 times.
MashaAllah.
And when you walk into Al-Aqsa, you know, there are doors for women and for men, but they're not opened. You have the main gate, which is open, and men and women both go through. The women have their own quota at the back here, and the men have their at the front, at the far. But there is no issue. There isn't a problem. I used to walk from the place where I was staying, which was approximately 4-minute walk to Al-Aqsa, on my own at 4 o'clock in the morning. Without fear, I would walk from that particular hotel, and I would walk to Al-Aqsa and do my Fajr.
Yes.
4 o'clock in the morning.
Same in Baghdad.
Absolutely.
I would get up, and we would go at Fajr time. My husband would go and do his with all the men, and I would go once I'd got the kids, make sure they were asleep, and I would go to do Fajr in the masjid, and No issues, no nothing. You know, there was a few aunties with me and we just did fudge and it was beautiful.
Yes, yes.
And I thought, you know, why can't this be every day?
No.
You know, and you know, when you leave these places, you feel
You
inside
miss it, don't you? I miss Al-Aqsa so much.
Well, I miss Baghdad so much, but inshallah,
I've never been. You know, it's my desire and my wish that one day to go. I've never been to Baghdad.
I mean, going to, you know, Najaf, Kufa, Karbala, you know, those trips that you make, it's life-changing. And the beautiful thing is, the Shias and Sunnis together, and they're all going there for love, for muhabbat of our libad, yeah? And there's no issues that is she Shia or is she... You all wear the same clothes, so you can't tell by the way someone looks what they are, and you just go in and it's your time, you know, with our beloved's family, you know, the Alibat, and the feeling you get inside is undescribable. You know, we know there's issues in Iraq and we know that it's really not a good place at the moment.
I'm afraid it hasn't been a good place for a long time, sister.
Radicalisation again. I mean, Baghdad and Iraq is full of Daesh and ISIS. And you'll talk to... I mean, we do charity work there, so we take medical aid over. So that's why we've been. But we've come back, as soon as you tell anybody that I went to Baghdad only 18 months ago, they're like, oh my God, has she been radicalised? What did she go there for?
You said yes, I have.
and you think, oh, I went for charity work. Is it not good to do charity work? You know, has it become a crime to help somebody? You know, if you, as Muslims, you save one person, you're saving all of the ummah. Sure. And if you know, we all know that, you know, so we've gone there to, even one person gets an inhaler. I know I've saved someone's life, because if you're having an asthma attack, you can die.
Of course.
You know, and over there, all the hospitals have everything, but they don't even have one hospital. My mum went to, the whole hospital, big hospital, not like here, one inhaler. In a whole hospital. It was locked up in a safe.
Well, I was reading in the newspaper, was it the newspaper or the internet, that, you know, in Syria, Aleppo, all the hospitals are now ruined.
Well,
you know, you think
people are getting killed while they're being treated in the hospital. I mean, I have two brothers call me from Aleppo. We've met, and you know, they're constantly, please, sister, help us. You know, one of them works for the government and he's in education. He doesn't want to leave. He says, I can't leave. It's my world. I love my country. But when he sees babies being killed in front of him, can you imagine? You know, and then he says to me, sister, look at this, sister. And he speaks Arabic, so, and I'm not very fluent in Arabic. So I tell them all, just shwaya, shwaya. I don't. But they say, sister, look, and then they show you pictures, which obviously pictures speak more than words. And I feel, what can we do, you know? And the same, also, if you look in Iraq, it's the same.
Yes, we have to ask ourselves the question, where did we go wrong?
Yes.
Because somewhere we have gone wrong.
Yes.
And we need to take a step back and reflect to say, where have we gone wrong? Because, you know, by again pointing fingers at people, nobody can walk into your house and throw you out unless you are extremely weak.
Yes.
Okay?
Definitely.
Right? Because you fight back.
Yes.
Because these are your children.
You fight for your family. You fight for, you know, what you have.
Exactly. So we have to ask these questions, that where have we gone wrong? What did we not understand?
Well, we didn't understand how we should be humanitarian.
Well,
I feel, because, you know, it's okay us being scared of somebody labelling us as radicals. I mean, I've been labelled it now, so okay, so what? I just carry on. It's not going to stop me from helping people that I know need it. You know, it's not, you can't just hide it away, what's happening in Aleppo. You can't hide what's going on in Mosul. No, it's happening, you know. True, and you've seen it before the war. And you know, it's not going to be the same if you ever get a chance to go again. Who gives that monopoly to be able to do that to a country? We did. Yes. But why? Because, as I said, I think there are many greed, you know, injustice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like anybody who harms humanity.
you know. And
Well, I
think
said, you know, our Prophet ﷺ said, you save one of humanity,
Well,
you save
yeah,
all
exactly.
of the ummah. But in that, it doesn't say he has to be a Shia, or he has to be a
Well, there
Sunni,
weren't any-
or he has to be a Christian, or he has to be.
no.
It's one
Yeah.
of ummah. Yeah, it doesn't tell you. I mean,
Absolutely.
if you're walking down the street and you see a gentleman who falls down, keels over, and he needs your help, I'm sure you will go and try and help.
Well, you wouldn't ask them.
what sect are you? Are you Muslim?
Which football team do you support?
Yeah, you know, you just
don't.
go and help. It's like
course.
we had a lot of issues in Blackpool with EDL and BNP,
I remember well, sister.
and it's still there, but we were carrying on because, you know, we're bigger than that, you know, and they're radicals as well, and we're radicals, but in a better way. But I always said to them, whenever they'd come and speak to us, because sometimes they would actually knock and say, you know, I want to speak to you, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And they'd say, well, you know, you don't like us, you know, you wouldn't help me. And I said, no, if you're my brother, and if somebody attacks you now, I'll fight for you. And they were like, I said, you know, if you're ill and you go to the hospital, you've got 90% chance it's a Muslim that's going to be taking care of you.
I hope that you asked them what nationality the
You know,
doctor is.
and I'm sure you wouldn't care if he was a Muslim. All this that you're standing for, you know, we hate Muslims and we want to get rid of Muslims and Sharia law is bad. But when you're sick in hospital, I'm sure you don't believe in those things. And they were like, oh.
Well, the Sharia law becomes very nice then, doesn't
Yes.
it? And yeah, we get that. As soon as you mention the word Sharia, and people are thinking that's chopping heads and chopping hands.
Yes.
But I think it's, you know, Sharia, we're living Sharia. You and I dress in a particular way.
Yes.
According to Sharia, we eat according to Sharia, we talk to our parents according to Sharia. So I think it's, again, words that have not been explained by our leadership appropriately
out and used against us.
used out of context, politicized, because even in the United Kingdom we have used the words like Sharia, we have used the concept of women in Islam. You know, we have abused that, and it begs a question: why?
I mean, I have met a few Muslims that, you know, the women go and teach at the local masjid, and when they go into the masjid they wear niqab because they're going into a masjid, you know. But when you see them same women walking the streets and going to Asda and Tesco and all the different shops, they don't wear a niqab. And when I've asked this question, it's, well, she's going in a masjid, you know, there's men there. But then it comes to my mind that, what, are Muslim men more dangerous than English men?
Yeah,
is it okay
lack
to
of understanding, isn't
and then,
it?
to me, that's radicalisation. Do you not think?
Well, I think it's lack of understanding, isn't it? Why does one do certain things? I don't wear the veil. I've never.
But you don't wear it. Full stop.
No, I don't wear it exactly.
But you don't just
exactly.
wear it if you're going to a khatam or if you're going to, I don't know, to an event. Oh well, I'll wear the niqab today. You know, it's meant to be a part of your life. If you've got to commit to wearing it. It's not a joke, is it really?
Well, it shouldn't be a joke, but then you also see a lot of our sisters who have not understood the concept of parda, have not understood the concept of hijab, because you find a lot of them will only wear a hijab during Ramadan.
Yes.
And not, I often have
and Salah as well.
Yeah,
It's Ramadan. It's 1 month.
Yes, exactly. And I often wonder, it amuses me, I think, sometimes, why. But we have to move on, we have to let them understand and explain. It's not what we say, but how we say it.
Exactly.
We have to be very, we have to be good in our manner, how we explain things. It's no use getting a headscarf and putting and said, well, you've got to put that on, because if they're putting that headscarf on without understanding,
well, there's no respect either.
No, because I see a lot of young girls wearing certain kind of clothing which contradicts the headscarf.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's
another topic.
No, that's another topic for another day.
Yes.
But this is religious illiteracy. This is not. They have not.
What was the name of the scarf as well?
Yeah.
Never mind the clothes. I know exactly what you're trying to say.
Because it's contradiction.
But you see them wearing the scarf in such a manner that it makes you want to look at them. Well, is that not meant to be?
But it's contradiction, and it's lack of understanding. And I think this is why it's important for women to be in mosques, so they can have those conversations. You know,
Definitely.
so we need to be a holistic society, and not just that you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and that's it. So whether you're a radical or whether you're not a radical is irrelevant. It's absolutely irrelevant. These are labels that have been pushed by certain agencies, certain governments, and you know, they're abused.
They are abused, and from abusing those words, then the people are getting abused. And I feel,
Yeah, of course.
you know, we're
of course.
getting abused because, you know, we're so-called radicals because we're Muslims, but yet they don't open the radical word up to everybody, because it's everybody from all different places. You know, you get radical. Look at Ireland and the issues that they had in Christianity.
Northern Ireland.
You know, and they were both Christian, and they were both very radical towards each other. You know, and
I don't know that word was ever used.
It wasn't, was
In
it?
fact, even now, when you have certain hiccups within the IRA, it doesn't exist as such, but they are dissidents.
Yes.
Okay, they're not radicals, they're not extremists, they're dissidents, and you see that being used in certain other parts of the world too.
yeah,
Where as soon as the person happens to come from a particular faith, immediately one makes assumption that he or she has been radicalized somewhere. But then when you look at Breivik, the guy who killed 71 people in Europe,
yes,
in the European country, I forget the name of the country now, he killed 71 people. Most of them were young people.
yes.
And to this date, he has not been labeled as a terrorist.
No, and well,
He was a right-wing extremist.
well, it's the same in America. It's the world's biggest country that has a lot of shootings, and a lot of the times they'll go into schools and shoot children and teachers, which is absolutely devastating, because you send your children to school
For safety.
but then this is happening quite regularly. It's not like once in 10 years, it's quite regular. They're not extremists. They've got mental health issues, you know.
Oh, yes, of course.
Poor mental health issue comes into the, well, they're ill, you know,
Yes.
they didn't mean to do it.
Well, you know,
Unless it was a Muslim that went into the school and did it,
Yeah.
well then, you know, I think...
So it begs a question, doesn't it? What do we do? Do we become and do exactly as what the media are doing, or do we rise above and say, okay, we're not going to do that? You know, we're not going to do that. So I think there has to be reflections, and there has to be a thought process. What are we going to do about it? Where is our media, by the way? You have a lot of Muslim channels within the United Kingdom. Are they addressing the situation? I'm sorry to say, but I don't believe that they are.
No.
You know, we don't seem to be addressing the difficult situation. We're not even addressing the difficult question from the minbar every Friday.
We're not, it's just the same topics every day, and they memorise their their speech.
Exactly.
And it's just the same speech.
Yeah. So young people are not, you know, young people need to be engaged. Young people are getting bored. And we need to change the way that we deliver our sermons. We need to change. We're not saying change, to reform Islam, because reformation is not necessary.
No.
We're saying at least speak the language that the children understand.
Well, I mean, I went to Turkey. I don't know. Have you been to Turkey?
Yes.
Yes. And I was Hazrat Ayyub Ansari. I was there outside, sat, and it was Isha Namaz time. So I'm sat there outside. I had Abdul, my little one. So I didn't go in the masjid. So I was trying to, because he doesn't sit down. So I'm sat there and azan, and then you see them all rushing to go to do salah. And some of them, if you see them, because they're quite fair, they've all got jeans and t-shirts, nothing like what you would portray as a Muslim. And you see them rushing towards the masjid, and you say subhanallah, you know, because in the UK, because of the cultural issues, they feel that they have to wear a clothes a certain way before they can go and do salah. If you wouldn't see any man with a suit and tie.
No, well, you wouldn't be an imam, would you?
You know, but if you went to a different
well, you don't have to go to that far. You just go down to half an hour from here to Bosnia.
yes, you know, and if you just see how they're all suited and booted, but they're reading Salatul Salam, they're doing Salah, they're doing Zikr, and yet you wouldn't even think they were Muslims if they were just walking past you.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, if you were to go to Bosnia or Kosovo, you find that a lot of, because it's in Europe, and the way that our physique is for men, they don't, some of them, well, most of them that I met didn't have beards.
No, they don't.
Right?
Even in Turkey.
Yeah, they didn't.
No.
So what does that mean? Because some of our people would say, well,
we can't pray behind him.
Exactly.
We went to.
I don't want to get into this discussion because it's very much a theological discussion. I think.
Yes.
But I'm not a scholar.
We're bringing this back that if we've been to these countries, like I mean Bulgaria as well, the imam, he didn't have a beard. And he didn't even look Muslim, but he was Muslim.
But what do you mean when you say
in the UK? Because what I'm going to come to that now is that if that imam came to Blackburn or Manchester or Blackpool or wherever, I know you wouldn't have an issue, I probably wouldn't have an issue, nobody would have an issue, but you would get that percent of people saying, well, he doesn't look like an imam, we can't pray behind him, we can't even pray with him, he doesn't look like a Muslim, look at him, he's wearing a t-shirt, he's wearing jeans, he's wearing this, he's wearing that. And I think a lot of young children are quite put off by going to the masjid because they need to wear salwar kameez, they need to wear the jubba.
Salwar kameez is not an Islamic dress.
But you see in the UK, it's very much cultural. Do you not see it? On a Jummah, and you sit outside the masjid, you will see them all with salwar kameez or jubbas on. Very rarely, if they're coming from work, they've got, they can't change.
There's certain needs.
And I think that puts children off, I think that it's like, when they go, you have to respect the masjid and you should wear. But if that's putting them off coming to the masjid, then should you not just change it a little bit so that they are coming, and once they've got the love of our Prophet ﷺ inside them, they'll want to wear. Do you not think?
Yes, from my little novice understanding, as I said, I'm not a scholar, that
But you've worked in a school and you've worked with children.
Yeah, but the Prophet didn't hammer fiqh. He didn't hammer in, the fiqh of Islam and the law of Islam. What he was looking at was the heart. The love. Exactly. So, we have to learn all these things. And this is what I meant when I said right earlier on, we have to go back to our scriptures. I often, because I work, in majority of cases, I work with non-Muslims. And if they want to learn about Islam, you point them in the right direction. But I often give them a biography of the Prophet ﷺ, the Sirat al-Nabi. I said, if you can read the Sirat al-Nabi, you will relate to the Quran.
Yes.
Because that is the key. He is the key.
Yes.
If you don't have the key, you're not going to unlock the wisdom of the Quran or the wisdom of the Word of God. So read that, and I do that with my, with my students. I get my students to read Surat al-Nabi first. Read that, then read.
Yes.
And it will fall in its place. You will learn about the times of the Prophet. You will learn about the tribulation that he went through. You will learn about the historical context. You will learn about the place.
And why it started and how our Nabi Sallallahu came and changed the world for a better place.
Absolutely.
But I think that, these days, like he was saying about them, in Arab countries, women go to the masjid and it's normal. But here it's although it's a non-Islamic country, it's very important. It's non-Islamic, but when it comes to women going to a masjid, it's cultural. It's cultural and it's normal. And kids going to the masjid, it's cultural on how they dress. And then it's, we don't want to go to masjid because now we'll have to go and put our salwar kameez on, and I don't want to do that because my friends will see me. And do and I think that when you visit other countries, because a lot of the cultural issues is because they just go back to one country and come back to one country and back. But when you visit the world,
it opens up your eyes, isn't it?
And you see Muslims. Muslims isn't just one kind of Muslims. You go to Karbala, you go to Najaf, you go to Syria, you go to Pakistan, you go to India. They're all different. Even India and Pakistan next to each other, but there's quite a lot of differences.
Of course.
And I feel the same. That that's when radicalisation within ourselves appears, because we believe that Islam should be in this way, and then when we see somebody that's out of that box, you get quite negative. I mean, I don't personally, but I'm just,
What they do is,
you'll say, he's not wearing it. you know, he's not a good Muslim, look how he's dressed, you know, and you start judging them, but you're not judging yourself that, well, yeah, I've got a jubba on, but am I actually a good Muslim? Am I actually following the Seerah of our Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?
This is I think goes back to the earlier conversation of intra-dialogue, that dialogue and conversation between Muslims, different faction of Muslim needs to take place.
It's very important.
That's whether you talk about Shia Muslims or you talk about Sunni Muslims, and we need it at various levels. So you have, as I said, you have scholars who need to speak to each other. You need grassroots people, and the grassroots people need to be guided. So you need that middle management type of thing.
Yes,
who will guide
definitely.
those people to say, you know, yes, we're different. We have differences. Of course, we have differences. Absolutely, we have differences. We can't deny it. But can we navigate the troublesome waters? And how do we navigate?
Yes.
And it can be done. It can be done. We have plenty of evidence, but we need to go back to our scriptures.
Definitely. And
Absolutely.
I think, you know, even people that think that they know their scriptures well still need to go back when it comes to
To
dialogue.
reflect, absolutely. And dialogue is a necessity within Islam.
And I think once Muslims have got that dialogue within Muslims, we can then tackle the non-Muslims, because I think that, you know, if we're radical within ourselves, then how can we stand unity towards the non-Muslims and say, look, we're all Muslims and we're standing for each other. I'm standing for our brothers in Syria. I don't care what faith they are, they're Muslims. You know, we're standing for them, rather than, well, this bomb went off and they were Shia, so it's okay, or this bomb went off and they were Sunni, so it's okay. It should be, no, it's not okay.
It's not
You know,
okay.
it's not okay.
It's
We're
not
all Muslims.
Yeah.
And when we've got that unity between us Muslims, we can then stand up strong, I think.
Well, you're starting at a good place, sister, because as a mother, we are the first university. If we can teach our children to respect all and justice, I think that's what's been missing. Education has been missing.
I mean, in our madrasa, we've got an African family who've just moved over from Africa, and they've only been here about a month and 6 weeks, something like this. So it's very fresh still. They're still following how they did back at home. And then we've got a mixed race little girl who hasn't got that cultural element in her life. She hasn't got that. And then you've got a little boy who's about 12 months, he's come from Pakistan, so he's still got his package from Pakistan. They've got theirs from Africa. She's just mixed race and hasn't got anything at all. And when they're all sat together, they're all babies and they're all happy, and and then when you see them behaving, like one will say, I've put my shoes on, so now I need to go and wash my hands, and the other one will say, well, no, you don't really need to. And then the African, they'll behave in a totally different way. And it's so enlightening to see that, you know, they're all Muslims, they're all behaving in different ways, and they're all children, so they're all still learning. But none of them are, well, she's African, or she's this, or she's that, or she's got a white mum, or she's got a Pakistan. It's nothing. It's just when we're older.
But those are the
learned, aren't they?
Those are learned behaviors. We learn behavior. You know, we are born with a very clean slate. You know, there's a word. Oh gosh, fitra. Is it the word fitra? Is it you know, that you're born with the word in purity?
Yes.
Okay.
We're all born.
And clean slate.
Yes.
So when babies and children are born, they don't know the difference between the color, the creed, and religion. It doesn't exist. We create those differences. You know, we create those differences. You know, don't play with that because they support the wrong football team, so you can't. You know,
Yes.
we create those differences, and we need to be careful. Sometimes differences have to be created for protection at a certain age, and I understand that because children will need to learn who they are. Otherwise, you will have confusion. So I understand that.
Yes.
But it's not. It's how do we teach our children? And if the mothers are not fully aware of their own scriptures, if they're not too sure, then we have problems. And I think that's what's been the problem with our communities at large.
Definitely. And I think, like I say, you know, this problem that we have is that women out there, we need to stand up for our rights as Muslims. We should be proud that we're Muslim women, and our Prophet ﷺ gave us so many rights, and I think we're neglecting those rights. And You know, because we just because we let people control us and just think, well, it's okay, it's fine. You know, I do my salah, and then that's enough. But if you're not educating and then not educating your children, is it actually good enough? Is it acceptable within our religion? Because you really...
I just sometimes wonder, as again, language is very important for me, sister.
Yes.
I sometimes just wonder whether, when we talk about our rights, my rights, it's a double-edged sword. I think as a Muslim, I prefer to talk about my role, about my obligations, rather than my rights. And I think this is where we have problems. It's my right to have X, Y, and Z. Is it? Is it really my right? Or do we have a role to play? Or are we under certain obligations? You know, if you look at women, you talked about women, that women have rights. Well, men and women both have rights.
Yes, we all have
both.
rights.
We are equal in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we have different roles. We have different obligations. And when we assume that we're equal, because I don't always like the word equality, when we assume that we're equal, we assume that we must be the same. That's not true. We're different. Men and women are different.
We have differences.
Right? And we have different roles to play, different obligations. So I don't believe in all that.
Well, this is for our next time, inshallah, because we're coming to the end of today.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. It's been wonderful today. I really enjoyed it because it's opened my mind and we've had a really good chat, and I think that, you know, we need to carry this on because there's so many things more.
Why do I get that feeling?
So we'll be seeing you again, inshallah. But I'd like to say thank you again, and I'd like to say thank you to our viewers. I hope you've enjoyed our show, and inshallah you will see us soon again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.